Former South African President Thabo Mbeki says foreign nationals who are committing crime in South Africa must be arrested and deported. But he urged people to not paint all foreign nationals with the same brush. The former president also says South Africans are not xenophobic. Mbeki commented on the range of issues on Africa and at international level. Our international news editor Sophie Mokoena compiled this report.
Since his retirement, the former president has channeled his energy in contributing towards building a better Africa. He engaged students and ambassadors on the thorny issue of immigration laws.
You can't stop it. You can't say, disengage from your concept about South Africa and forget about your history of connection in terms of the struggle. You are not wanted. I'm saying the practical reality is that, and indeed this country has been more developed than others, it will attract people. There will be migration. The ANC, has been a Pan-Africanist organization from its birth. So the questions that are raised, for instance, about SADC, integration within the SADC region, this has been part of the concept of the African National Congress forever. Integration on the African continent. That's why I'm saying that we've supported very much our government correctly, this continental free trade area. Now, we've got to communicate our messages correctly. I agree with the point that was made. Countries in this region, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Lesotho, and so on, the point that was made. Not that they should exist as independent countries, but this matter about integration, the possibility to develop the economies together. At one point, we in government decided that there must be some way by which we help when the tourists come to South Africa, help to get them to go over the Drakensberg mountain into Lesotho. So we could try and build roads and do whatever, because this idea of integration among ourselves, it's a strong idea, we have to act on it. But I'm saying there is the obvious thing that will happen, it will continue to happen, of other Africans coming to this country. Now, I don't believe that we can have, now I'm talking from the point of view of the ANC, you can't have an immigration policy which is just defined by chase away these foreign nationals. You can't.
He also commented on foreign nationals who are found to have committed crimes in South Africa.
I think what you do with people who commit crime is you arrest them. That's all. You arrest them, you charge them, and hopefully get a conviction. In many countries, when that criminal finishes their sentences, you deport them. I think that's a straightforward thing. The laws are there about suppression of crime, whether you are a South African or a foreigner, whatever you are. So that really should be the response.
He has called on the African Union to address the current conflict in Ethiopia.
We have a challenge on the continent, practically to address that matter of unity in diversity. In the context of which then you can decide what kind of political system do you have? A federal system? And when you say federal, what do you mean by federal? To define that federation, but at the same time you want to keep the national cohesion, that we're Ethiopian together. Though we will recognize the fact that these identities at a lower level must be recognized and respected. At the same time, the common national identity must also be respected. I'm saying it's a challenge to construct societies to be able to deal with those sorts of issues. But it's a common problem, it's across the continent.
Mbeki has called on Africans to continue to fight for the repatriation of what was taken from the continent during colonialism. He has warned that this is not going to be an easy battle.
The issue about African artifacts that are elsewhere in the world, there's continental policy on this matter, which has to do with the return of the artifacts. But obviously, it's a matter of a continuous struggle. You remember that during the colonial years, the British colonialists took Sarah Bartman and took her to England. And then from there, she went to France. She died in France. And really, they treated her in the most appalling fashion. She's a terrible criminal. So she died in France. And they were exhibiting her as some rare spectacles, put her in a cage, and have people walking past to look at this animal and pay whatever money. Really very bad behavior. So she died, and they cut out some pieces and put them into these vases with preservatives to keep them, and it really is a very bad story. So we said, look, Sarah Bartman must come home to be reburied here. It required a campaign, and it required, in the end, that we should link up with members of the French Parliament. We then took up the matter, raised it in Parliament, and so on, until you get the majority of the MPs in France saying the South Africans are right. And that's how Sarah Bartman was brought back. But what I'm saying is it requires a struggle. And you would find that, for instance, the West African countries, whether Nigeria, others, a lot of the sculptures and so on are in the European museums. Look at the British Museum. The British Museum would have a lot and lots of stuff which British colonialism collected from all over, including Africa. When you then engage them in a discussion to say these matters must come back, you meet a lot of resistance. Because in some instances, you can see that if you brought back these artifacts, which are in exhibition in particular museums and so on in Europe, it would virtually mean the museum must cease to exist. The very, very interesting statement that was made by Picasso, the painter. Picasso said that there is an ethnic museum in Paris. There was, I think it's still there. And he got interested in it because it had a lot of these African masks and things like that. Not very well kept, this museum, in terms of cleanliness and all that. So he says it would get quite cold in winter. But he was so fascinated by this, and he would come and watch this, examine this sculptures and so on, particularly from West Africa. And he says, that's what made me the painter that I am, Picasso. So you can see the value of these materials taken from here to Europe. When you say, please bring them back, you can understand the resistance. I think it's a matter that we just take it as a matter of struggle. The diamond that it was given to the British royalty by De Beers, they donated, I think it was when the now late Queen Elizabeth II, I think it's when she was here and she was 21 years old. They gave her a birthday present, the mining company, De Beers. They gifted her that diamond, which I understand is part of the British Crown or something. Well, people are afraid to ask the British to return it. I would say good luck to that.
Sophie, SABC News, Johannesburg.